you also need to start.
Yep, I'm just going live on the YouTube. I'm going to start broadcasting now.
Welcome, everyone. Good morning and good evening to our friends in the States and in Europe. I'm Marie Lingbeck, Senior Partnership Manager at Plug and Play, and very excited to bring this event to you today, together with one of our most active and innovative partners, Energy Steiermark, and their innovation arm, Next-Incubator. So for those of you who don't know Plug and Play, we are an active early stage investor supporting and investing in startups globally. And we also run a large corporate open innovation program together with 500 plus corporations and connecting them with our startups, helping them to reduce costs, reduce emissions, and increase efficiency. So before we kick it off, I would like to go through the agenda with you and a few housekeeping items. So first, we will have opening remarks given here to you by Gernot Schröck. Gernot is an innovation manager at Energy Steiermark and also their incubator called the Next-Incubator. After that, we'll hear about tech trends in the smart city space presented to you by Noreen Brar. Noreen is actually now a former Ventures Associate in Plug and Play and now at RGA Ventures. After that, we've invited here 3 startups to present their technologies that are applicable to smart cities, and my colleague Alberto Pascal will moderate that session. And last but not least, we have invited 3 innovation experts from very different utilities to talk a little bit more about the role of utilities in creating smarter and more resilient cities. So everyone will stay muted throughout this event. Unfortunately, we don't have time to take Q&A from the startups. However, after the startup session, you'll see a poll popping up on the screen where you can let us know which of the startups you'd like to get connected with. And I know a lot of you are watching via YouTube as well, so you'll have a chance to get connected to these startups afterwards. And with that, I would like to welcome here Gernot. Thank you.
Thanks, Merit. Hi, I'm Gernot Schröck from the Next-Incubator, and I'm really excited to welcome you together with Plug and Play to this event. The Next-Incubator is the innovation hub for sustainability of Energie Steiermark, an Austrian utility, and it is our declared aim to promote innovation that meets economical, ecological, and social criteria, and that provides improvement towards our ambitious climate goals. Cities are a substantial factor for this transformation into a sustainable future. So we have to achieve smart cities to fight against and adapt to climate change. To achieve this, we have to initiate new solutions and technologies, and we have to cooperate also with other industries. That's also a reason why we are partner of Plug and Play, to have the possibility to get access to the newest solutions and technologies and the worldwide network of corporates within the Plug and Play ecosystem. So now I'm really looking forward to interesting presentations, solutions, and a panel with quite interesting and various views on smart cities. So I want to hand over to Noreen, who will give us an overview over smart city trends.
Everyone, today I'm going to be sharing a brief trends overview about smart cities. My name is Noreen. I'm excited to be with you all here today. All right, first up, we're going to start with smart network, move on to transportation, smart infrastructure, and finish off on smart waste. So today, a quick overview about what is a smart city. So smart cities, as you all know, technology is at the heart of everything that we do, from our phones to the outside on the streets to going into a classroom to our Zoom meeting that we're having right now. Everything is about technology. So smart cities will improve the quality of life for citizens. We hope that smart cities, and by creating a more collaborative, cross-connected culture in terms of transportation, mobility, networks, interactions with our health systems, education systems, and so on, we'll be able to create more inclusive and collaborative interactions in our daily lives, two-way communication networks with our citizens, as well as government entities, and so on. Smart cities rely on 3 tiers: infrastructure, local strategies, meaning global and local level strategies, as well as user adoption. So enormous benefit can be seen to citizens only once the infrastructure is at pace for where it needs to be. And these things can only happen when global and local initiatives and strategies align through manufacturing and competitive collaboration in terms of updating existing infrastructure, building new infrastructure, and driving user adoption using data science to improve services and implementing the right strategy to really create that co-creative next generation level of society that we're all striving for by adopting smart cities. So the smart network, what is smart network? So I'm sure you've all heard of 5G, the 5th generation of mobile connection, right? That is truly enabling faster speeds, ultra low latency, instantaneous two-way communication. We've heard so much about what 5G can do, and I'm here to tell you just a little bit more. So 5G is 10 times, it can transmit data 10 times greater than 4G. It has 100 times greater capacity than 4G. It can do more than what 4G can do, and it can sustain the data that we now have on the market, on the network. So over 238% increase in data has been seen in the last 2 years alone, due to the number of users who are now able to gain access to servers around the world. So 5G, by embracing 5G and implementing the actual infrastructure that we need to unleash the full potential of what this new network can do for us, then increase connectivity, the lower latency, the instantaneous connection between yourself and your home, as well as with users on the road and beyond. This the reduced latency can do more than just, connect you with other individuals. And this goes beyond just for our, transportation and mobility, but really this goes on to the next generation of where the economy is going. This will truly revolutionize gaming on mobile devices, making it faster than ever before. 4G enabled 40 to 60 millisecond speed times, whereas 5G, it's just 1 millisecond disruption time. So it's really going to unlock a new generation of speed for the future generations to continue to grow their economies on. Mid-size collaboration is truly revolutionary in providing an advantage for mid-size communities that collaborate with their communities, have that two-way communication, that are already in tune with their community's need for rapid development and flexible technology options to continue to iterate and then implement changes that are directly impacting citizens in real time. So smaller cities are truly have the leg up in implementing not just technological changes, but having real world impacts on how this is affecting and improving the lives of their citizens, and embracing cross collaborative nature across borders as well is really important here. Next up, we have smart transportation. So what is this doing for us, and what does it really mean? So vehicle to everything. This is where we really see the access that is possible through 5G and through connectivity. Going from that, this is the second inflection point, right? We see this horse and buggy on the screen. Why do I have this there? Because, well, the horse and buggy was the first inflection point in mobility, from going from a cart and a horse to now an automated fossil fuel powered car, where that was the first inflection. And now the second inflection really comes with this connected car, right? Moving away from fossil fuels and going to a battery. This is a revolutionary in terms of where we've seen mobility in human history. We also see a huge shift as the gig economy rises, and we see more environmentally conscious options. As cities become more compacted, we are moving towards away from ownership and more to pay-per-use models. So how is that going to impact how we think about mobility and how car manufacturers deal with that going forward? Also connecting to not just yourself and having your phone, connect to your GPS system, but now connecting to having these electric vehicles which are self-driving and connect to the cars around you, as well as the traffic signals, and how those changes can be implemented, and how those impacts can be seen in real time to citizens. So like I said, V to X. So it's not just vehicle to vehicle, it's vehicle to device, vehicle to pedestrian, vehicle to grid, vehicle to infrastructure, basically by connecting. So imagine you sit in your car on your way home from work, which has been two-way charging with the office building by providing power when the building was running low, and then, having enough power to get you home. Now it's a little bit later than usual. So when you're going home, the traffic signal lights are already are able to receive the signal from the sensors in your car that you're approaching, and it knows the route home. So now the lights on your way home, if the traffic is clear, they turn green automatically. So imagine this, just creating more efficient systems, more efficient, turnaround times in terms of reducing traffic, reducing pollution on the roads. We're creating more convenient methods of telematics and more safety, implementing more safety warnings in the car itself to communicate with not just the cars on the road, but also the pedestrians, the humans, everything that goes on the road that leads to some very traumatic fatalities year round. The pandemic has had a dramatic effect on vehicles. However, despite the adverse economic conditions, we have seen high electric vehicle purchases throughout the year, forecasting that by the end of 2021, all new electric vehicles will make up 7% of all new cars purchased, which is expected to grow another 66% by the next 2 years. With China and the EU still leading this, given that their incentives from their government agencies and different tax exemptions have continued to propel their industry forward, with the US lagging behind, which is why the US has recently just proposed expanding tax credits to keep up with some of their counterparts. Okay, so today, over 500,000 people die in Europe prematurely due to poor air quality alone. And I think that's a pretty heavy fact, just to know that, preventable, but by implementing changes, these are preventable deaths that are plaguing the European Union today. Buildings are a huge waste. They're a hugely inefficient use of energy. By updating the HVAC systems, you can save 20 to 30% on energy today alone. HVAC systems are largely plagued by leaks and have a huge cost on the overall electricity payment for a building, as well as environmental costs. Like I said, environmental impacts of buildings are pretty drastic. So looking at the time here, I'm going to just kind of speed through this, but a lot of changes that can be implemented in the building, especially going to net zero by 2030 and 2050, hitting some of those Paris Agreement and EU Just agreements will really help hopefully propel this industry forward and save a lot of environmental damage that is currently in place because of that. Innovation case studies, I'm also going to breeze past this really quick, but there's some pretty notable advancements that have been that have seen real world economic and energy benefits, such as Ford Motor Company, which saw $15 million in savings just by implementing a few innovative strategies along the way. Last but not least, sorry for breezing through this, we got smart waste here. And I think this is an important one. I don't want to miss it because smart waste systems are largely overlooked. Most smart waste management systems go on a predetermined route, regardless of whether they require collection or not, how filled the bin levels are, how energy efficient or efficient the route itself is. They're just kind of going off of their typical planned routes. However, by implementing smart strategies that can manage selection control, distribution, planned pickups, bin sorting, smart billing, and also incentivizing citizens to correctly dispose of their waste is will have huge implications in terms of not just at taxpayer dollars and city resources, but overall in terms of environmental impacts on biodiversity and health implications for the citizens themselves. A few notable M&A activities that are taking place are seen here, which is pretty exciting and hopefully will lead to quicker changes being implemented in terms of technology in the US. The US is currently the leader in waste with producing over 250 million tons of trash every year. So hoping that as sensors are being embraced and smart waste technologies are continued to take shape throughout the world, and the cost of actually putting these in place will become more competitive over time. A few of the top cities with smart waste will be Singapore is actually the #1 ranked leader in technology and successful urbanization strategies. They started their journey in 2016 and have remained the leader. SF actually was able to divert more than 80% of its waste this year, collecting over 2 million scraps of food in 2020, which brought it up to one of the fantastic 3 in terms of smart cities. So excited to see that we have made it, at least here in San Francisco, and hopefully some of these changes are exciting to all of you at home to implement in your cities or across your neighborhoods going forward. So thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it, and look forward to hearing from you all again sometime soon. Don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Noreen, for that great presentation. Was amazing. So good morning and good evening, everyone. For those of you joining from Asia, my name is Alberto, and on the ventures team here at Plug and Play, working on the energy side, where we help corporations like Energy Star, Mark, scout and identify the best companies to pilot and collaborate with. And today we're going to have three amazing stellar companies presenting from different parts of the world. And they're going to be tackling the subject of how can utilities essentially get involved with creating and building smart cities, essentially. So these three companies will be presenting their solutions. They're based out of different parts of the world. And yeah, I'm really excited to see what they have for us today. So our first company is presenting all the way from South Africa. Kudoti is building more circular economies by digitalizing and optimizing recycling waste chains across waste collectors, aggregators, recyclers, manufacturers, and brands. So essentially what's happening in South Africa is that you get all these companies essentially building waste solutions from scratch because there's essentially no infrastructure. So yeah, excited to see what Matthew and the team has for us today. Matthew, stage is yours.
Hello, everyone. My name is Matthew de Godemar, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Kudoti. So Kudoti is a company based in South Africa, and we're really focused on unlocking the full potential of the circular economy by building more profitable, more efficient supply chains for waste materials. And this, we believe, is what will really help to unlock the opportunities that can be accessed through the circular economy. And today, I'd like to talk about some of our work in the context of smart cities and try to share the understanding of why the circular economy and waste management is so crucial to actually achieving or building a truly smart city. So maybe let's start first with the basic framework of what a circular economy is. And very simply, the circular economy is this notion that materials should flow continuously from production, consumption, and then back into production. And in that notion, in that framework, you want to minimize, if not eliminate, all inputs of raw materials into the system. So if we look at what this means in practice, really the key building block of the circular economy, very much like any other smart city application, is data. Without data, we will never manage to actually build an understanding of how to move forward towards a more circular economy, if even to actually manage and implement it on the ground. So key to the circular economy is this data. And this is a key part of our work at Kudoti as well. And what I'm showing here is just an illustration of that, where we actually need to develop an understanding from the data within a geographic area of how much waste is being produced or discarded, or what products are being thrown away, the amounts, the life cycle stage, where we can actually start to measure what should be recycled, what can be reused. And then we actually want to go into understanding how we can actually connect the dots. So understanding where the materials are and then where they can go. So understanding who the off-takers are, who the processors are. And then lastly, we also want to develop an understanding through the data of the market conditions for these materials. And this points to a really key and highly important factor of why we need to shift from the current model to a smart city model. And that shift is essentially shifting from a waste management model to a resource management model, where waste stops being something you just discard and actually is itself a resource that can be reused or reutilized in some way. So understanding the value of the materials is a starting point for actually considering that waste as a material. So within the smart city framework, we then need to be able to understand what are the costs and opportunities for any specific material or product. And then using those costs and opportunities to then transfer to households and businesses an understanding of the value of the materials themselves. So the evolution of this is essentially what I'm showing here, which is an integrated ecosystem where every piece of the value chain is connected to the next value chain piece. And they're linked together through data. So today at Kudoti, we do this mainly through software, but you can use other applications as well, such as IoT, and then using the data to actually optimize how the ecosystem functions and interconnects with each other, where the outcome of this is you're actually maximizing the value of the waste that is going through this ecosystem. So that was just a very brief introduction to the concept of circular economy and how it relates to smart cities. Hopefully that was useful, and I'd be happy to keep in touch and chat to anybody who wants to know more. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Matthew. Awesome. So our next company is based or is presenting all the way from Australia. In this case, Peak Hour provides real-time and predictive insights into mobility and crowd movements. Let's see what their take is into this problem and how are they solving it in Australia. Stage is yours, Amid.
Good afternoon. Omid Ejtemai with Peak Hour Urban Technologies. Before I start, I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity of presenting at this forum. In the next few minutes, I'd like to provide some background information about the mobility market and then talk about Peak Hour approach. Most analysts have a very positive outlook on transport infrastructure market and anticipate a healthy growth for the foreseeable future. What is fueling this growth is the unstoppable migration of population to the urban area around the world and big cities. And it is estimated that by 2030, around 2/3 of the world population will be living in large cities. And as you can see on this map, this is clearly a global phenomenon, not limited to a specific region of the world. And it is exactly this migration and the density of people that drives transport imperatives and creates the challenges that governments and urban planners are facing around the world. Needless to say, the old solutions to build more roads, more tunnels, more bridges don't work, and everyone agrees that the only viable solution is to better utilize the existing infrastructure, which is the reason that every large city today has a comprehensive digital transformation strategy. One of these key strategies is the ability to predict traffic, and the reason is clear. Only when we predict traffic, we can prevent congestion and manage it. The idea, of course, is not new, and predictive technologies have been on the market for quite some time, I would say the last 10 years, but they have significant shortcomings. They are typically based on traffic models that are complex to build, to calibrate and validate. They require large investments in infrastructure. They are typically not scalable, focusing on corridors, and yet they are very expensive to implement. They are typically multi-million-dollar implementations, and they require ongoing recalibration of the underlying traffic models, which adds to the cost of maintenance. And this has been the motivation, our motivation, to bring together some of the best minds in the industry with AI and traffic engineering and software engineering skills to build innovative and disruptive solutions. These solutions are designed from ground up with AI for digital transformation of large city in mind. They are entirely data-driven. They scale, and there is in fact no limit to the size of the city that we can support. They self-learn, meaning that they adjust automatically to the road conditions, and as traffic conditions change, they don't need any recalibration, and there is no zero maintenance cost to maintaining these solutions. And as such, they offer a very attractive total cost of ownership because our pricing model is based entirely on subscription. We are a very young organization, less than 1 year old, but very proud that we already have 2 implementations Our first implementation in Melbourne was launched in May of this year. We partnered with Department of Transport in Victoria, and the solution has been running since then and offering very good results. That the solution covers around 20,000 road segments and 2,200 kilometers. Our second implementation, which is going to go live in November next month, is in Taipei. We partnered with Taipei City, and there we are covering 6,500 road segments. Unfortunately, there is not enough time for a live demo, but I do like to thank you for your time and attention, and I very much look forward to our panel discussions. Thank you very much.
Awesome. And our last company is presenting all the way from London. So ClimateX is solving a pretty well-known problem to the newer and to our existing generation, which is climate change. Essentially, ClimateX is quantifying the financial impacts of climate change and is turning these potential future losses that climate change can impact into opportunities and other revenue potential.
Hi everyone, my name is Alex Rapeau and I'm the Commercial Strategy Manager here at ClimateX. And what we do is we provide climate intelligence that you can trust. So why does climate change matter? I think everybody's quite aware of what's happening in the world around them. You don't need to look too far to see the impacts of climate change, whether it's the floods in Germany, the forest fires in North America, or even the cold snap in Texas that caused a multi-day power outage. It doesn't really matter where you are, regardless of your industry. These climate-related physical risks are an increasing concern. Now, one of the positive things that we've started to see is that governments, regulators, and investors are all mandating institutions and corporations to start undertaking detailed climate assessments. More importantly, to build resiliency around the future perils and risks that we will face in the long run. And that's where ClimateX comes in. We provide the data that's needed to underpin those assessments. What we do is project the probability and severity of different weather events all the way through 2100 at an asset level granularity. And we do it in some really interesting ways. So a couple things that are really key here is, one, we take any number of climate scenarios that people are interested in, whether it's high emissions, low emission scenarios, it doesn't matter. We can upload whichever scenario you deem more relevant to your industry or business. But generally, the IPCC scenarios are the ones that people are concerned with, or the ones under the Paris Agreement. The next step is to get an inventory of past data. We'll take a combination of satellite imagery to get a view of what is happening on the ground at a high resolution. We'll supplement that with synthetic aperture radar data, which pierces through any cloud obscurity to get detailed elevation maps, and LiDAR where it's available. If we have strong local data, we will use it, but if not, it's not a problem because we've already got well-trained models, removing that reliance on local data. We then project forward into the future under the different climate scenarios by creating synthetic scenarios of the location in our digital twin modeling mechanism. So we literally simulate the laws of physics to understand how different climate scenarios will play out in a particular location and what the risk will look like as a consequence. Finally, we package all of this up into a simple API or online portal that our customers can use. All you need to do is import your assets or provide the location, and then we generate the hazard maps onto which you'll see your pins laid out. And then you can start taking action on mitigating these risks. So why ClimateX? Few things. I think the first one, we pride ourselves on being a truly vertically integrated solution, meaning this could be your one-stop shop for all your climate-related risk assessments that meet regulatory requirements and are trusted by academia and the best UK climate scientists. So everything is packaged up under one roof. We also have a world-class team that's leading the project, and you'll see some of these folks on the screen shortly. Now, when it comes to smart cities, climate data of this sort is obviously very important. If you look right now, 50% of the world's population lives in cities, and by 2050, it'll be 70%. Cities flourish because of their economic power, proximity to resources, and approach to innovation. These features attract mass congregation of peoples, which makes cities vulnerable to pollution, congestion, and waste. all problems that tech and innovation is trying to solve. These vulnerabilities in turn leave cities particularly exposed to extreme climate risks as well. Some of these risks being urban flooding, droughts, extreme temperature, sea level rising, and changes in weather patterns. And that latter one alone have already left cities unable to deal with the deluge of rainwater in the wake of an unexpected storm. Water can overwhelm underprepared stormwater drainage and infrastructure. Roads, parking lots, buildings, sewers, and drains are not necessarily able to handle high volumes of water caused by unexpected rainfall. And that's where data can help ensure that their infrastructure can be more resilient to the impacts of climate change. Investing in all new infrastructure or climate-friendly building materials may seem like an unwelcome expense that could put a potential smart city in the red, but that's not the case. Investing in climate resilience could bring profitable returns and protect cities from generating hefty expenses. Similarly, ignoring the global climate situation can deliver devastating losses to the business world by as much as 24 trillion US dollars. If you're going to invest in new infrastructure that enables technologies for new buildings, water, waste management, and energy generation, understanding your exposure to physical risk and mitigating them will ensure you don't incur any critical damage and associated monetary losses. So that's Climate X in a nutshell. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and I can't wait to speak with you all soon. Thank you.
Great, awesome. I believe that was all. But million thanks for these three amazing companies that have joined today to present their solutions. Hopefully, they can land on some POCs and pilot opportunities together with Energy Star Mark, and we look forward to more collaboration in the future. With that, I'm going to hand it back to my colleague Marit, who will be moderating this amazing panel. And yeah, we'll let you speak more about this amazing panel and these attendees. But thank you all for joining and signing off.
Thank you, Alberto. And now thank you to our startups as well. And you should see a poll popping up on your screen. So you can let us know which of these startups you'd like to get in touch with. And if you're watching via YouTube, we can facilitate those intros later. And with that, I would like to introduce you to our panelists today. We have invited three innovation experts from three very different utilities here to talk about the role of utilities in creating smarter and more resilient cities. So first, I would like to welcome here Julie Mansari. Julie is an innovation strategist at Dominion Energy. Dominion is one of the largest utilities in the country. They're headquartered in Richmond, Virginia, and they're offering both electricity and gas to their customers. Second, please give a warm welcome to Eric Chavis. Eric is an interim manager of the Innovation Hub at Con Edison. And Con Edison is based, of course, in New York and provides energy to more than 10 million people. And last but not least, I'd like to welcome here Matthias Schaffer. Matthias is a head of R&D and Green Energy Lab at Energy Steiermark. And Matthias has also been part of the Smart City projects in Austria. And as you probably know, Energy Steiermark is based in Austria, headquartered in Graz, and serving over 600,000 customers in the region, both electricity, gas, and heat. So welcome, everyone. And you all come from very different regions. You know, Con Edison focused on a very large city, Dominion Energy operating in 16 different states in US, and Energy Steiermark focused on smaller cities in Austria. So maybe before we kick off our panel, maybe the first question to you would be, what does smart city mean to your utility? So maybe Eric will start with you.
Sure, thanks, Marie. And thanks for having me on this panel and event. Smart cities to Con Edison means many things, but I'll start with increasing connectivity of our various assets across electric, gas, and steam, not only for to benefit our own operations and maintenance of those systems and keeping them safe and reliable, but also for our customers, of course, as well. And then in addition to that, where what we deem appropriate and beneficial, connecting our customers to that data, not only their own data in terms of their own energy usage through smart meters, but also through other means, such as we have hosting capacity maps for those looking to install solar. We can show customers if it's an ideal spot. If you're located in an ideal spot in our system, you can find that on the web, as well as for developers too. So it's customers, it's business, and it's our own operations as well.
Thank you. Julie, what about you and Dominion Energy?
Thank you very much, Merritt. So for Dominion Energy, we look at smart cities really as a way to kind of partner with the communities that we work with, because we're really looking at kind of the value that it can bring in, kind of creating this efficiency off the infrastructure that we already provide in both our electric and gas territories. So for us, we see that as a partnership and opportunities, a lot of shared goals that can basically help customers have a better experience in those communities that they live in, also promote and provide more economic development opportunities and better use land. But also, I think we recognize it's really important to have people know what they should look to the energy company for in partnering in smart cities, because it's a very, very broad category. But first off, we usually think about electrification of transportation. That's probably the number one place our electric utilities can help out with, as well as smart street lighting, and what are some of the adaptive technologies that can be associated with that to collect data. And then lastly, any kind of shared smart infrastructure that might be out there, whether it's metering for kind of a collaborative utility perspective, or using data from the various utilities to kind of improve and make our world more efficient and greener.
Thank you, Julie. What about you, Matthias?
So thanks for the question, Merit, and hi to everybody. As you already know, Europe only has a few megacities such as London, Paris, and Berlin. This is why we classified the term smart cities as a mid-sized city up to 500K inhabitants. We handle a smart city as if it were a customer with its own vision and a very specific definition of the word smart. For example, the city of Graz, our partner within the R&D project Smart City Graz, wants to be climate neutral until 2040. Furthermore, Graz defines itself as a city of high quality of life. So the question is, what is the meaning of high quality of life? We mainly support the city as a utility in the area of the decarbonization, which is our core business, and try to offer innovative solutions through corporations.
Thank you, Matthias. And then we've heard several startups talking about the abundance of data and availability of data that Noreen shared as well. So, the use of data can help us make better decisions to increase the quality of life for people in the cities. We collect a lot of data from sensors, smart posts, grid, and so on. So what are the new applications or use cases that you'd like to see coming out of it? And are there any startup pilots in that space that you have done and you can share with us? Matthias, maybe I'll start with you.
Yeah, thanks, Merit. First, we have to ask ourselves, who's the real customer? Is it the city or is it the population or the companies? The different segments of customers have, of course, very various needs. In the case of the cities, I want to give 3 examples where a concrete benefit can be generated through specific data. First, The first example is the monitoring of environmental data like temperature and air quality to implement specific measures. Second one is to analyze of people's movement data for the purpose of optimizing the public transport and to optimize the modal split. And the third example is data for very efficient and secure usage of public places and like parking spots and parks. That's from my side, Merit.
Are there any startup collaborations you've done in that space that you can share with us?
One example is the Austrian startup from Vienna. It's called ParkBob. It's using the data from the mobile phones of the users to find free parking spots for the individual traffic. That's one example. We have cooperation with them.
Thank you. Julie, what about you and Dominion Energy?
Merit, thank you. First of all, as we had mentioned earlier, I think data and information from our outdoor lighting system is going to be kind of a ready-made solution. And how do we more efficiently operate that outdoor lighting? And sometimes it's things as simple as that. We have a smart lighting deployment in our South Carolina territory that we've kicked off that we certainly think is going to be a successful program. I do think there are a lot of opportunities around how do we start to site again some of that electrification of transportation infrastructure. For example, we're using a variety of rebate programs to get people involved and get charging infrastructure out there. How do we use the data from those chargers to better deploy assets in the community in the future? And those are just a few. We have a variety of other things happening, of course. Data not only for our own systems, operations, and grid, but also where we kind of meet that edge with our customers and how we can better serve them in deploying that.
And any startup case studies that you can share in that space?
I'll give another example. We've been partnering with a company called Easy Mile for an autonomous shuttle. And with that, we've worked with some startups around traffic light infrastructure and how does that vehicle communicate with the signal, the red, yellow, and green light, and how do we extend that? So there's a lot of opportunity in that space, certainly, and there are a lot of opportunities around obviously electric vehicle charging infrastructure and how that gets deployed. We've recently been working with a pole-mounted charging company, and how the benefits of attaching to infrastructure that already exists can really, expand the amount of deployment that we can do and not kind of clutter up the cityscape.
Thank you. Eric, what about you?
I get the benefit of piggybacking on previous responses, so I appreciate it. We've got a number of initiatives. I'll highlight a couple here. One is our traditional demand response programs, where we pay customers to reduce their energy use when it's either hot out, or we have a gas program now, so reduce their gas use when it's cold out. That our deployment of advanced metering infrastructure has unlocked that program to all customers that have that infrastructure now, so we can pay down to the residential level. If you reduce your energy use, you get rewarded for it during times of stress. So we have that. Then on the electric vehicle front, we're doing a lot of work as well. So we've been partnering with a company called previously startup called Fleet Karma. They were acquired in a Smart Charge New York program where we incentivize customers to charge their vehicles off peak. So that's a device that's put into a vehicle and then that tracks their vehicle charging patterns. So we're expanding on that program as well. And we're also looking to partner with early stage companies to provide other services around electric vehicles, around where and how to optimize infrastructure build out, but also how to help customers understand the cost of either acquiring their own personal vehicle or fleet electrification. That's a lot of learning to do there, and a big decision for a lot of companies. We also have another product called, working with a company called Connect DER, which is a meter collar device that goes between the meter and the meter pan that allows solar customers, and we're looking at other applications, to quickly interconnect their solar panels and avoid having to drill through their foundation and wire up into their electric panel. So that's a nice win for many folks. The customer, us, we get data, and then the third-party provider as well. Then finally, we're also offering tips to do energy efficiency through, again, that smart meter data. Now that we have that granular insight, we can provide tips to customers on how to improve their energy use.
Thank you. And Eric, you already started with talking about like what is the future of customer engagement. Others, like if you would like to share, like what does the future of customer engagement means to you? Like how do you communicate with your customers in terms of extreme weather events, or trying to have your customers to make greener choices, reduce energy, or going fully electric? If you'd like to share any case studies here.
I can start off with one other. I mentioned the electric, their energy efficiency, the electric vehicle program demand response. That's all through kind of push notification oftentimes, or through emails or otherwise bills on their device now. We transitioned almost fully to digital communications now. It's still a work in progress. Another point is as you mentioned, kind of storm notifications and time of restoration notifications, still work in progress for us. Luckily, a lot of our system is undergrounded actually in New York City, so that's less of a worry there, but it's more our northern territories, which are more suburban. There, we still are impacted by storms there, and the communication with customers, there's always improvements to make there, so we're working heavily on that front.
Thank you. Matthias, what about you? How do you communicate with customers?
I think the retention of customer happens on every level. Therefore, the inclusion of customers through cooperation is a very important point for us. One example of I can give is our cooperation with architects and developers in the field of real estate. This is the process how tailor-made and customer-oriented solutions for sustainable energy, mobility, and buildings can be created. And in my opinion, it's not a question of technology. I think fairness, transparency, and the inclusion of the customers is the key for a long-term business relationship.
And maybe how do you, you mentioned the architects and construction companies are important for you, but in terms of how do you try to have your customers go all electric, or any projects that specific projects that you are running there, or are there any case studies?
I think it's a really huge trend in the development of buildings. They went away from district heating to heat pumps, and also the mobility sector. It's a huge trend from fossil fuels to electric. It's a trend. So I don't think that the utilities have to communicate this trend to the customers.
So you see more like
maybe you can offer special products and solutions like smart homes and so on. Yeah, okay. As Eric already mentioned. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Julie. What about you?
Yeah, I agree with both Matthias and Eric. I would also add, though, I think what customers are looking for more, I like the fact that you use the word nudge, Merit, because you can nudge people, but they don't act. Right. So I think one of the important things that we're starting to focus on is kind of that personalization of information that you provide to people. Like, how can you help me? You know, I know there are choices that I can make as a customer, but specifically, what are the ones that I can make that are going to make the difference? If that's what their concern is there, is the place they want to be, or is their journey, or what's important to them around sustainability, green energy, or is it more around cost savings? And they certainly can be kind of things that can be coupled together where you can get both benefits. So I think that's where the data aspect comes in here from being smart, is like, how do you more smartly provide more personalized information to your customers so that they can take their own action? Also, on the flip side of that, I think what we have to do is help our customers understand that the energy company, we like Dominion Energy, is working towards a greener portfolio. So whether it's more renewable or renewable natural gas, you know, the way that we're providing energy, they can be more greener by, you know, utilizing or, you know, seeing how our product is actually helping them.
Thank you. And you all talked a little bit about sustainability, and I want to talk more about climate change. As we heard today, majority of the people living in cities, and majority of cities are coastal cities. The big cities are coastal cities, very much impacted by hurricanes and flooding, and the climate change is fueling even more extreme weather. So predicting those flooding by looking at the past might not be anymore the best tool going forward. So what have you, how have you prepared your company for this type of extreme weather events? And what type of new technologies you are looking to engage with in this journey? Maybe Eric, you can start. You probably done a lot in New York.
Yeah, unfortunately, we were quite impacted by, well, we're impacted a lot by Superstorm Sandy in 2012, if all may have heard of that across the world even, where we lost a lot of our system, the service to our customers for a good time there. And that led us to invest a significant amount of money in what we call hardening our system, or in more direct terms, waterproofing, or taking out of the risk area by elevating equipment out of potential flood areas, or just making them higher and safer to increase reliability. So we've done a lot of work there around just simply making systems more reliable in case or when another storm like that hits. And we're constantly also working on, that's mostly our underground systems, but then our overhead systems, making innovations on better vegetation management practices. So can we look at satellite-based imagery, even terrestrial LiDAR-based, to better manage our vegetation to prevent trees from falling on our equipment when the next storm hits? So a lot of work being done on various fronts around hardening, and then prevention and prediction around events as well.
Thank you. Matthias, what about like extreme weather events in Austria? We saw flooding happening in Germany and Holland. Do you think your area's service territories are also kind of in a risk of those extreme flooding, or are there any other things happening in your area?
I think there's specific problems here in Austria, here in Graz, is local floodings and also the heat waves, for example. So that we, from an Energiesternmark, we constantly work to optimize the security of the supply and the resilience of the energy system in general. And also we try to integrate the renewable energy to optimize our system. As I already mentioned, and one important point for us is the topic of transparency and the information for the customers. And so therefore we offer an online information system about the conditions of our grid for our customers. The second question was what we are looking for which technologies. So we are looking special for technologies and solutions to decarbonize our core business. Is the most important field of innovations. And the second field, we are looking for solutions for our customers in order to the challenge of the climate change. That's from my side.
Thank you. Julie?
Thanks, Merritt. Both Eric and Matthias reminded me of the whole variety of potential impacts from climate change that Dominion Energy has, because we operate all the way from, Utah down to South Carolina, up into Virginia as well as Ohio. So those all are experiencing very different impacts. If you look down, towards the eastern part of Virginia and Norfolk, their challenges are around sea level rise and flooding, not at like severity of events, but consistently. So we've worked with them and discussed with them about flood sensors on infrastructure that we have, where our critical infrastructure is going to be impacted. But all the way up into more likely scenarios of storm impacts where we've gone through and done strategic undergrounding, so where do we put our lines underground? Eric has the benefit of having a large network, up in his neck of the woods, but so we have to kind of make that case. And I'll use that as an example because that's an area where we not only had to get buy-in from our regulator and legislators, but also from our customers on undergrounding those lines. And the way we approached that actually was we used an augmented reality app that we had developed that actually showed the customer where that undergrounded transformer, for example, would sit in their front yard. You could hold the iPad up and they could look out the window and see where it would sit and how it would look. So that was a technology that was really helpful, that spanned all the way to, how do we have more efficient operations, but also get our customer buy-in. Out in Utah, we're working a lot on green therm or green energy programs for our natural gas business, because Salt Lake City has a unique geological formation where air pollutants sit atop the city. So we're trying to meet our communities where they need to be in the ways that we can do. And I think that's kind of the smart aspect of it is, again, I started with partnerships and working with them and what's the value to them and what's the opportunity. We have lots of ways and levers that we can pull, to mitigate, the big impact.
Thank you. And then maybe let's talk a little bit about startups. So if a startup is interested in connecting with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you, and maybe any tips they should know before and how to prepare? Matthias.
So I think it's very easy. The advice is, if you can offer a sustainable solution for our problems or for the problems of our customers, please do not hesitate to contact me. It's very easy.
Thank you. Eric, Julie?
Yeah, I'd say be ready with having a very tight presentation of what challenge you're solving, whether it be for the utility, the customer, or somebody in between. And then most companies are digital these days, so have your cybersecurity expertise very much up to date. And so, because we always get asked about, that's all often the most lengthy process in any agreement. And then you can contact me on LinkedIn or wherever, and happy to provide my email as well.
Thank you. Julie?
Yeah, I agree with Eric on all that. I would also say, understanding how the utility businesses work is important. In some ways we're in R&D, but I think we use most of our industry organizations to approach that. That doesn't mean that we don't we want to hear your ideas, but help us understand how we can do that maybe in a lower risk environment. And I think that in that way you'll be more successful. Small pilots. What have you done with other companies? We're happy to talk and provide our advice, because what we really think the startups today are the successes of tomorrow. So if we can help you hone your solution, to a commercialized product, that's great. That's great. We might not do the first one with you, but the more you can talk, the more input, more advice. We're here because we all have innovation teams because we understand that the world is changing very quickly, and we want to be part of it. We want to help you develop your products that will support us and our customers.
Thank you. I know I would have more and more questions, but we have quickly run out of time. So thank you all so much for this very relevant discussion. Thank you for joining us. And for those of you watching, we have our next event, which is actually our key event of the year coming up in a month, mid-November, which is the Winter Summit, where our Batch 9 energy startups will be presenting on November 16th. So let us know if you're interested in joining. And thank you again to our panelists, to startups, and everyone joining, and have a nice rest of your day.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Thanks.
Thank you.